Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how much time does it take to write a book. The amount of time depends on a lot of factors, but I'll share some secrets that have helped me finish book manuscripts in mere months. By the end of this video, you will learn factors that could make your book take longer or shorter to write, and the best way to write your book quickly in just a couple of months. And stay tuned until the end of the video for some tips that I think will really help you along your way. Let's dive in. When I meet with authors and we talk about their book projects, a lot of times they've spent so much time, maybe years, maybe even decades working on the book and not making a lot of progress, or maybe they hit a wall. You know, it's common to work and work and work and work on a book and not ever get the place you want to be, which is to a draft, to the finish line. There's other times where you could start writing a book and be finished with the draft in a matter of months, weeks. I've written books in 4, 6, 8 weeks. It's possible. It's not easy, and I don't recommend it, but it's possible. A lot of times with projects that are short timelines, quick turnarounds, you're working with material that's already been gathered, publicly available information, research, recordings. All of these things are ready, and there's not a lot of other things needed to be able to bring the book together. You need to be able to take away all of the delays and friction in order to be able to write a book that quickly, but it can be done. If you think about writing 1,000 words a day for 50 or 60 days, you could write a 50 or 60,000 word draft in that time, you know, in a matter of a month or two. It's doable. But again, that really dictates that all the information's there, it's ready to go. There's so many times when I work on a project with somebody and all the stories are within them and we have to bring them out and they have to tell me their stories and then I can help to shape them into a book. You know, if your project is still inside of your head and it needs to be brought out onto the page, it's not so easy to make that quick turnaround. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more effort to get there. But it really depends on where the information's coming from and how quickly you can access it and being able to just find the place to be able to write. Other times projects can take years, and that's pretty common. You know, I know for myself, I've worked on many books that have taken years to complete. One of the most prominent was a biography I wrote about a baseball player named Ken Caminiti. I spent 8 years writing that book, and it was a long haul. It was a long journey. I interviewed 400 people for that project. That took a lot of time, and there was a lot of nuances to it. There was a lot of details that I uncovered from those interviews that really shaped it into something special. You know, I compare that to a book I wrote about Microsoft, the company. I spent 2 or 3 months writing it. I interviewed 4 people. There wasn't a lot of time to interview people. I was very strategic with who I interviewed and, you know, used them how I could, you know, and then I filled in the gaps with publicly available information because literally everything about Microsoft for the past 50 years has been written somewhere. Just a matter of gathering it into the right place and filtering it through. But that was a much easier book to write. So when thinking about your book, you know, think about the information that you need to gather. Think about the steps that you need to take in order to be able to make progress on it, make progress on the writing. One thing that can definitely bring down the timeline and make the writing process easier is doing book foundation work. I know I preach that a lot, but book foundation work is so important because it helps you set the roadmap for where you're going. You know, it's really tough to get to the place you need to get to if you don't have the right directions and if you don't have a clear path forward. And a lot of times, book authors and would-be book authors do just that. They write and write and write, and now they have all this material and don't know what to do with it. And that's a frustrating thing. It's a difficult thing. You know, I've worked on a lot of projects like that where authors have compiled lots and lots of material and have no idea where they're going next. I recently finished a project like that. The person was really involved in dancing, ballroom dancing, professional dancing, and their story was really, really just powerful and impactful. You know, and it was interesting to be able to take all these stories and to see them, gather them, and see how they fit together, and to shape it into a really powerful narrative. You know, this person, Molly, she's awesome. She had spent so long working on this book, like a decade working on this book, and it had taken on all these different iterations, and, you know, there was so much valuable writing she had done But as we were going through it, we're like, okay, what's the story? What's the point? What's the message? What's the takeaway for the reader? And really had to streamline and shape those things together. And we're able to make a lot of progress and able to get the draft come together. She did an awesome job. But it was interesting. It was interesting looking at kind of the getting lost and then finding yourself and finding your message and recognizing that when we write a book and we don't actually have a clear understanding of the destination and the reader takeaway and the benefit, it's so difficult to make sure that the messages all translate. And when I focus on book foundation work, I think about hook, audience, and outline. The hook is the reader takeaway, but it's that elevator pitch. It's what the reader's going to carry forward with them from this book. The outline is the structure, the foundation, and the foundation is the way in which the hook is carried forward. And the audience is really understanding who the audience for this book is. In Molly's case, it was people in dancing or understanding dancing, but it was really, in the case of Molly, it was, dancers were certainly a big part of that audience, but then it was also other people. It was people who kind of were dancing adjacent or aware of dancing. It doesn't necessarily need to be somebody who's an expert in dancing to understand the messages. So it really became more of a book for young adults entering that middle age. And it was really powerful to see how it all came together. Writing a book is a measure of steady progress. It's a measure of consistent progress. It's making every little bit count. It's doing a little bit of writing here, a little bit of writing there. You're constantly walking around with this book in your mind. I know I've been there. You're just thinking about it all the time. By making steady progress, by carving out time, whether it's an hour a week, 2 hours a week, or more, to be able to make progress, you'll eventually find your way. Once you do that foundation work and then you get to making consistent, steady progress, whether it's 200, 300, 500 words in any chunk, just keep going with it, and eventually things are going to start coming together. If you keep writing 200 or 300 words a day, how long until you write a chapter? And then you have a chapter done. Now you look at the chapters and you say, okay, if I have 10 chapters in the book, I'm 10% done with the writing. What's it take to get to that next chapter? And say, now I'm at 20%. And keep going and going and going. A book is not written in one sitting, even though you can try to do it with AI and ChatGPT. I'm sure we've all done it. I tried it. Horrible nightmare. I don't recommend it. But a good book isn't something you can just sit down and write in one setting. It's really about making steady progress. It's about a commitment to progress. It's about a commitment to being excellent. It's about a commitment to driving forward. And over time, all of those words are going to pile into something bigger. It's like an avalanche coming from the snowflakes, and those snowflakes pile up. It's just a matter of being able to bring them all together and carry them forward in the most powerful way possible. If you're really stuck, if you're struggling to make progress, if you spent years on your book and don't know where to turn, a ghostwriter could be a great option. So many people work with ghostwriters, and if you go to a bookstore and pick a book off the shelf, it's likely that it was written by somebody else other than the name on the cover, that someone else contributed to it, that there was a writing coach or a ghostwriter behind the scenes helping them along, helping to shape their story. There's so many times when I work with people as a ghostwriter, when I work with authors who have spent years working on their book, and then they start working with me, and then 3, 6, 9, 12 months later, there's a draft. And that draft may have taken them decades. Maybe they never finish it. Maybe it was too challenging. But working with a professional, it can help to shrink timelines. It can help to get your book moving forward. Because the worst thing is to sit on the book and never publish it. The worst thing is to let it just collect dust and sit there. When you could have it out in the world and you could share this powerful message and really help people. You could really change somebody's life with this book, and you don't want it to be sitting somewhere on a shelf unfinished and hold you back from all the great things, all the great, awesome things that are on the opposite side of publishing for you. If you want to learn more about how much time it takes to write a book, I really think you'd love to check out a different video I recorded. The title of that one is How to Turn Your Life Story into a Book. That video explores the main message of your story and all of my keys to writing a good book. So click the link and be sure to check out that video. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.